Okay, now we've already talked about exponents before, and just to remind you, if I have 3 with a 2 above there, that is 3 squared. It means 3 should be multiplied and show up twice. So I get 3 times 3 or 9. And 3 cubed means that 3 should appear 3 times and be multiplied. So 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And then here I have negative 5. So the negative I leave alone because the exponent only affects what's right next to it. And then 5 should show up twice, so 5 times 5, and that gives me negative 25. Down here, because there are parentheses, the exponent affects everything next to it. So negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. Here, I should have the whole set of parentheses, including the negative, show up 3 times. So negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, and that gives me negative 8. And then in this one, the 3 should only affect the 2, so I leave the negative out in front and do 2 times 2 times 2, and that gives me negative, and then 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Okay? So always keep in mind that if there are no parentheses, then the exponent only affects the number. And if there are parentheses, the exponent affects the negative sign as well. So here the negative stays because the negative doesn't get squared, but here the negative gets squared and it goes away. And then when I cube things, it doesn't really make a difference because there are an odd number of negatives here, and this negative just stays out in front. So if you cube things, it doesn't really matter. But when you square things, it makes kind of a difference, okay? So that's a little bit of a review of exponents. And if you have bigger numbers, you just include the number that you're squaring or cubing or whatever. You just include it more times. So if you had a 5 here, you'd have 5 negative 2's written. If you had an 8 there, you would put 8 negative 2's, okay? And you can see the numbers grow kind of quickly. Now, you can have any number up here you want, but what if you have 0 up here? What does that even mean? Well, if you raise a number to 0, sometimes we'll say it's raised to the 0th power, it becomes 1. Just 1. And it's really, really easy to do. And then if you raise a number to a negative power, you can flip the number and get rid of the negative. So, for example, in the first part, 5 to the 0 is 1. Negative 2, all raised to the 0 is 1. 1.02 raised to the 0 is 1. And 1/3 raised to the 0 is 1. That's pretty easy. And then take 6 and 6 to the negative 4th. You can flip the 6 and write 1 over 6 to the 4th. And here, negative 8 to the negative 1, flip the negative 8 and write 8 to the 1. And by the way, or write negative 8 to the 1. Negative 8 raised to the 1 here, this would just become negative 8. So I would get negative 1/8. Anything raised to the 1 doesn't change, okay? So we will learn how to do 0. So that's, a summary of how we will do 0 and negative exponents, and I will show you that with some more examples in the next section.